The stars went dark one by one. Not literally, of course, but the colonies that orbited them fell silent. First it was Vega Prime, then Epsilon Eridani, and finally the mining outposts around Tau Ceti. Each time, the pattern was the same. Distress. Calls would flood Earth's communication relays, chaotic and panicked. Then silence, complete and absolute. Commander Alan Davis stood before the holographic display in the United Earth Defense Force headquarters, his weathered face illuminated by the glow of dying star systems. The map showed the steady march of the Zarathi, collective across the Orion arm. Each red dot represented another system lost. The pattern was unmistakable. They were heading toward Earth. "How many people did we lose at Tau Ceti?" Alan asked, his voice steady, despite the weight of the question. Admiral Kate Rogers swiped across her tablet. 43,000 colonists. We managed to evacuate about 60% of the population before the Zarathi arrived. Alan's jaw tightened. Better than Vega Prime. We only got 30% out of there. The conference room door slid open with a soft hiss. General Frank Weber entered, followed by a young woman in civilian clothes. Her eyes were red-rimmed, her hands trembling slightly. "Commander Davis, this is Susan Miller. She was on the last transport out of Proxima B," the general said. Alan nodded respectfully. "Ms. Miller, I understand you witnessed the attack firsthand." Susan's voice was quiet but steady. "I worked in the deep core mining operation. We got the evacuation order 3 hours before they arrived. It wasn't enough time." She stepped forward and placed a small data drive on the table. "I managed to record it from the transport." Admiral Rogers plugged the drive into the console. The holographic display shifted, showing footage from a ship's viewport. At first, there was only the peaceful view of Proxima B, a dusty red planet, with dome-shaped colonies scattered across its surface. Then they appeared. The Zarathi ships emerged from what looked like tiers in space itself. They didn't match any conventional design philosophy. Their hulls were neither smooth like the Arcturian vessels nor geometric like human ships. Instead, they resembled massive insects, with segments and appendages that moved independently. Biomechanical was the term Earth scientists had settled on. Partly grown, partly built. There were hundreds of them, Susan said. The colony's defenses didn't even slow them down. On the screen, beams of energy lanced down from the Zarathi fleet. The largest dome on the planet's surface flickered, as its shields failed, then collapsed inward. "That was the main habitat," Susan whispered. 8,000 people. The footage continued, showing the Zarathi landing vessels descending to the surface. Unlike their attack ships, these were perfectly spherical, descending with eerie precision. "They don't just destroy," Susan continued. "They harvest. Technology, resources, data, anything they find useful. That's why they're unstoppable. Each world they take makes them stronger." General Weber muted the footage. "We've called an emergency session of the Galactic Council. It starts in 1 hour." Alan's expression darkened. "The Council has been debating. While colonies burn, I don't expect much from them. Nevertheless, Commander, you'll represent Earth's interests," Admiral Rogers said. "The Zarathi have never been stopped, but there's always a first time." The Galactic Council chamber buzzed with nervous energy. Representatives from 17 spacefaring species sat around a massive circular table, their translators murmuring in their ears. Alan Davis sat at the human delegation station, facing the empty center of the chamber where holographic data would soon appear. The Arcturian representative, a tall being with silvery skin that reflected the room's light, spoke first. "The collective's advance has accelerated. Our models indicate they will reach Arcturus within 14 standard days. From there they have direct paths to Earth, Arcturia, and the Centauri colonies." A ripple of concerned murmurs spread through the chamber. "The Danubian fleet engaged them at Tau Ceti," the insectoid Danubian representative chittered. 26 warships against their fleet. We destroyed 4 of their vessels. They destroyed all of ours. The collective adapts, the crystalline. Rigelian representative's voice chimed like glass bells. "With each engagement they learn. The third wave of their attack used our own shield frequencies against us. Alan leaned forward. What about a unified defense if we pool our resources? To what end, human? The Arcturian's voice was not unkind but resigned. The collective has consumed 12 species before they reached your section of space. None survive in recognizable form. Their biology, their technology, their very essence is absorbed. So we run? Alan couldn't keep the edge from his voice. Abandon the outer colonies and hope they're satisfied? We suggest strategic withdrawal, the Arcturian corrected. Fall back to defensible positions. Preserve our core worlds while we develop new technologies. While they grow stronger by consuming what we leave behind, Alan pointed out. The Rigelian. Representatives' crystal facets darkened in what Alan had learned was their version of a sympathetic expression. Commander Davis, we understand Earth is relatively new to interstellar society. You haven't faced extinction-level threats before. There is no shame in retreat when victory is impossible. Alan stood, activating the central holographic display. With respect, we've faced extinction many times in our history. From our own weapons, from environmental collapse, from asteroids, from pandemics. Each time, humanity survived not by running, but by standing firm and finding solutions. He displayed the tactical projections. The Arcturus system is a bottleneck. If we make our stand there, we can at least slow their advance, buy time for further evacuations. And who will make this stand? The Danubian representative asked. Our fleet is shattered. The Arcturians have recalled their ships to defend their homeworld. The Rigelians are not a warrior species. Alan met each representative's gaze before answering. Earth will stand at Arcturus. The HFY Defiant is en route as we speak. A murmur ran through the chamber. The Defiant was humanity's newest warship, its capabilities largely unknown even to Earth's allies. One ship? The Arcturian's tone was incredulous. Against a collective fleet? This is not courage, Commander. This is suicide. Perhaps, Alan conceded. But humans have a saying. Here we stand. We can do no other. As he left the chamber, Alan's comm unit chimed. A message from Earth Command. The Defiant had reached Arcturus, and Captain Lisa Hendricks was requesting final orders. He dictated a simple response. Hold the line. Help is not coming. Captain Lisa Hendricks read the message twice before addressing her bridge crew. The HFY Defiant hung in space at the edge of the Arcturus system, its angular hull reflecting the light of the distant sun. Unlike the elegant ships of other species, the Defiant was a testament to humanity's pragmatic approach to warfare, functional, heavily armored, and bristling with weapons. Commander Davis confirms what we suspected, she announced. We're on our own. Lieutenant John Kelly, the tactical officer, studied the system displays. The civilian ships are evacuating through the jump point. We have maybe 48 hours before the Zarathi arrive. Lisa nodded. Then we have 48 hours to prepare a welcome they won't forget. Chief Engineer Peter Williams spoke up from his station. Captain, the phase technology is still experimental. We've never tested it in actual combat. Then we'll be writing the manual as we go, Lisa replied. Humanity has faced extinction before, and we're still standing. We can't outrun the Zarathi. Forever. Sooner or later, someone has to say no. She looked out at the stars, the same stars that had watched over humanity's long climb from stone tools to starships. It might as well be us. The observation deck of the HFY Defiant offered the best view of the Arcturus system. Captain Lisa Hendricks stood with her hands clasped behind her back, watching the last civilian ships disappear into the jump point. Each flash of light meant a few hundred more people would reach safety, but there were still thousands left on the mining stations and research outposts scattered throughout the system. 36 hours until the Zarathi arrive, according to our scouts, said Lieutenant John Kelly as he joined her at the viewport. The tactical officer's normally cheerful face was solemn. Lisa nodded without turning. Are the mining stations still refusing to evacuate? Yes, Captain. The foreman at Arcturus 4 says they've put too much work into those mines to abandon them now. Lisa sighed. Stubbornness was a human trait that cut both ways. Send them the footage from Proxima B. Make sure they understand what's coming. The door to the observation deck slid open, and Chief Engineer Peter Williams entered. He carried a tablet displaying complex equations and diagrams that made little sense to anyone but him. "Captain, I've finished the final calibrations on the phase technology," he said, his voice mixing pride and concern. "It works in simulations, but I must remind you that we've never field-tested it against actual weapons fire." Lisa took the tablet, studying the diagrams even though she didn't fully understand them. The phase technology was humanity's secret weapon, developed in hidden laboratories on Earth over the past decade. In theory, it could shift the Defiant partially out of normal space, making the ship difficult to target while still allowing its weapons to fire. "If it fails, Pete, we'll do this the old-fashioned way," she said, handing back the tablet. "We still have conventional weapons." Conventional weapons didn't help the Danebians at Tau Ceti, John reminded them. Lisa's expression hardened. "We're not Danebians," her comm unit chimed. "Captain, to the bridge, we're receiving an unexpected transmission." The bridge of the Defiant was a model of functional design. No wasted space, no decorative elements, just stations arranged in concentric rings around the captain's chair, giving Lisa clear lines of sight to each crew member. Science Officer Olivia Martinez looked up from her console as Lisa entered. "Captain, we're receiving a transmission from a ship that just entered the system. It's the UES Dauntless." Lisa couldn't hide her surprise. The Dauntless was assigned to patrol the Sol system perimeter. "What are they doing here?" The main screen flickered to life, showing the face of Captain Eric Grant. He was older than Lisa, by at least a decade, with streaks of gray in his dark hair. "Captain Hendricks," he said with a nod. "Looks like we arrived just in time." "Captain Grant," Lisa replied cautiously. "We weren't expecting company. Earth Command ordered us to hold Arcturus alone." Eric's expression was grim. "Those orders were countermanded. The Dauntless was dispatched to escort you back to Earth. The Defense Council has decided that risking our two newest warships on what amounts to a suicide mission is strategically unsound." A heavy silence fell over the Defiant's bridge. Lisa felt the eyes of her crew on her. "I see," she said finally. "And if I refuse to abandon Arcturus, then I'm ordered to disable the Defiant if necessary and tow it back to Earth," Eric replied, his discomfort evident. "Lisa, don't make me do that. We both know one ship can't stop the Zarathi. Two ships won't make a difference either. Earth needs every vessel for its final defense." Intelligence Officer Daniel Garcia spoke quietly from his station. "Captain, the Dauntless doesn't know about our phase technology." Lisa nodded slightly to acknowledge she'd heard him. "Captain Grant, request permission to come aboard the Dauntless to discuss this matter in person. This isn't a conversation we should have over an open channel." Eric hesitated, then nodded. "Permission granted. I'll expect your shuttle in 20 minutes. The screen went dark. "You're not actually going back to Earth, are you, Captain?" John asked, his voice tense. Lisa turned to her crew. "Prep the shuttle. Lieutenant Kelly, you have the bridge while I'm gone. Chief Williams, make sure the phase technology is ready at a moment's notice." She paused. "And run a full diagnostic on our engines. I want to make sure we can outrun the Dauntless if needed." The shuttle bay of the UES Dauntless was larger than the Defiance, reflecting the ship's status as a flagship. Captain Grant waited as Lisa's shuttle touched down, flanked by two security officers. Lisa disembarked alone, her steps measured and calm. "Captain Hendricks," Eric said formally. "I wish we were meeting under better circumstances." "As do I," Lisa replied. "Is there somewhere we can speak privately?" Eric led her to a small conference room adjacent to the shuttle bay. As the door closed behind them, his professional demeanor softened slightly. "Lisa, I know what you're trying to do here. It's brave, but it's also foolish. The Zarathi have never been stopped, not once in their entire campaign across this sector." Lisa looked him in the eye. "There's always a first time, Eric." "Not this time," he insisted. "I've seen the intelligence reports. Their fleet gets larger with each system they consume. The force heading toward Arcturus is 3 times the size of the one that took Tau Ceti. Lisa took a deep breath. What if I told you the Defiant has something that might change the equation? Something that Earth Command doesn't want widely known. Even to captains of other ships? Eric's expression changed, a mixture of curiosity and suspicion crossing his face. I'm listening. It's called phase technology, Lisa explained. It allows us to shift partially out of normal space. In theory, it will make us nearly impossible to target while still allowing us to attack. In theory? Eric questioned. It works. In simulations. But yes, we haven't tested it in actual combat. Eric shook his head. So Earth Command is risking their newest ship and its crew on untested technology? Against an enemy that has never been defeated? Someone has to make a stand, Lisa said firmly. If not here, then where? Earth? After the Zarathi have consumed even more technology and resources? After more colonies have fallen? Eric was silent for a long moment. Then he reached into his pocket and pulled out a data drive, placing it on the table between them. These are my official orders, he said quietly. To return with both ships or disable the Defiant trying. He placed his hand on the drive, then slowly pushed it toward Lisa. However, the Dauntless experienced an unexpected computer malfunction. All orders from the past 12 hours have been wiped from our systems. By the time we restore communications with Earth Command and receive new orders, the Zarathi will already be here. Lisa stared at him, understanding dawning on her face. You're staying, she said. Eric nodded. 2 ships won't make a difference, they say. Let's prove them wrong. As Lisa returned to her shuttle, she looked out at the stars. The same stars that would soon witness humanity's stand against the unstoppable force that had swept through system after system. For the first time since receiving her orders, she felt something she hadn't expected. Hope. The alert klaxons wailed throughout the UES Defiant. Red emergency lights pulsed in rhythm with the alarms, bathing the corridors in a crimson glow. On the bridge, Captain Lisa Hendricks watched the tactical display as dozens of red dots appeared at the edge of the Arcturus system. Zarathi fleet has arrived, Lieutenant John Kelly announced, his voice steady despite the gravity of the situation. Long-range sensors are counting 73 vessels. No, wait, 89. They're still coming through. Lisa exchanged a glance with Intelligence Officer Daniel Garcia. That's significantly more than the force that took Tau Ceti. Daniel nodded grimly. They're adapting. They must have analyzed the defensive capabilities of this system and adjusted their numbers accordingly. The communication console chimed. Captain Grant of the Dauntless is hailing us, Olivia Martinez reported. Eric Grant's face appeared on the main screen. In the background, the Dauntless's bridge crew moved with purpose, preparing for battle. Captain Hendricks, Eric said. Looks like we have company. A lot more company than we anticipated. Any second thoughts, Captain Grant? Lisa asked. A small smile crossed Eric's face. Too late for those now. We've analyzed their approach vector. They're moving slower than expected. They're being cautious, Lisa realized. 2 human warships where they expected no resistance. They're trying to figure out what we're up to. Let's use that to our advantage, Eric suggested. The mining stations at Arcturus IV, have they evacuated yet? Lisa checked the status report. Most of them. 3 stations are still showing life signs. Then we make our stand there, Eric decided. We position ourselves between the Zarathi and those stations. Make them think our priority is defense, not attack. Lisa nodded. Agreed. It might buy us time to refine our strategy. As the communication ended, Chief Engineer Peter Williams approached Lisa's chair. Captain, the phase technology is fully charged and ready. But there's something you should know, he lowered his voice. The power requirements are immense. Once activated, we'll have approximately 7 minutes before we need to recharge. If we time this wrong, we don't get a second chance, Lisa finished for him. Understood. We'll make those 7 minutes count. The 2 human warships moved into position near the mining facilities orbiting Arcturus IV. The Defiant took the lead position, while the Dauntless hung back slightly, creating a defensive screen. From a distance, they looked pitifully small against the backdrop of space, two ships preparing to face an armada. On the Defiance bridge, Science Officer Olivia Martinez monitored the approaching Zarathi fleet. "Their formation is changing," she reported. "They're splitting into 3 groups." The tactical display showed the Zarathi vessels rearranging themselves. The main group continued directly toward the human ships, while 2 smaller groups began flanking maneuvers attempting to surround them. "Classic pincer movement," John commented. "They're not taking any chances." Lisa activated the ship-wide communication system. "All hands, this is your captain speaking. The enemy will be in weapons range in 6 minutes. Remember your training. Remember why we're here. Every system that falls strengthens them and puts Earth one step closer to destruction. That ends today." She paused, looking around at her bridge crew, humans from different backgrounds united in this moment. For too long, species across the galaxy have fled before the Zarathi advance. Today, humanity makes its stand, not just for our species, but for all free beings in this galaxy. Hendricks out. The Dauntless hailed them again. "We're detecting energy buildups in the Zarathi vanguard," Captain Grant reported. "They're preparing to fire. Conventional shields won't hold against that kind of firepower. We need to split their attention," Lisa decided. "Captain Grant, take the Dauntless on a wide arc toward their right flank. The Defiant will engage the center. We'll activate the phase technology when they commit to the attack." "Understood. Good hunting, Captain Hendricks." The 2 ships separated, engines flaring as they accelerated in different directions. The Zarathi immediately responded, adjusting their approach vectors to track the human vessels. "They're taking the bait," John noted. "The right flanking group is breaking off to engage the Dauntless." The distance closed rapidly. On the main view screen, Lisa could now see the Zarathi ships clearly. They were even more disturbing up close. Their hulls seemed to pulse with an inner light, like the carapace of some massive insect. Appendages that might have been weapons or sensors extended and retracted seemingly at random. "Weapons range in 30 seconds, John announced. Lisa took a deep breath. "All weapons prepare to fire. Target their lead vessels. Chief Williams, stand by with the phase technology." "Standing by, Captain," Peter confirmed from his engineering station. 20 seconds. 15. The Zarathi fired first. Beams of sickly green energy lanced across space toward the Defiant. At the same moment, another volley targeted the Dauntless. "Evasive maneuvers," Lisa ordered. "Return fire." The Defiant lurched as the helmsman executed a series of tight turns. Most of the enemy fire missed, but one beam struck the ship's conventional shields, causing them to flare brightly. "Shields at 60% from a single hit," Olivia reported, her voice tense. The Defiant's weapons fired in response, railguns launching hypersonic projectiles, laser arrays delivering precise strikes. The impacts were visible on the lead, Zarathi vessel, but it continued its approach seemingly unfazed. "Minimal damage to target," John reported. "Their armor is absorbing most of our fire." Across the battlefield, the Dauntless was engaged in its own struggle, weaving through enemy fire while delivering counterattacks that seemed equally ineffective. "Their ships are communicating with each other," Daniel noted, analyzing sensor data. "When we damage one, the others instantly adapt their shields to resist similar attacks." Another volley from the Zarathi struck the Defiant, this time hitting with greater accuracy. The ship shuddered violently. "Shields failing," Olivia called out. "Hull breach on deck 4. Emergency bulkheads activated." Lisa gripped the arms of her chair. "Now, Chief Williams, activate the phase technology." Peter's fingers flew across his console. Phase technology activating in 3, 2, 1. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then a strange sensation washed over the bridge, as if reality itself had become slightly fluid. Through the view screen, the stars appeared to shimmer and blur. "We've shifted partially out of normal space," Peter confirmed. "Phase technology functioning at optimal levels." The Zarathi fired again. This time, their energy beams passed harmlessly through the Defiant, continuing into empty space beyond. Lisa allowed herself a small smile. Now it's our turn. All weapons fire at will. Target their propulsion systems first, then weapons. The Defiant's weapons blazed. Unlike the enemy's attacks, the human ship's fire connected solidly with the Zarathi vessels. One of the smaller ships spun out of control as its engines exploded. "It's working," John exclaimed. "They can't hit us, but we can hit them." Across the battlefield, the Dauntless was still fighting conventionally, drawing fire and attention from a significant portion of the Zarathi fleet. "Captain," Daniel called out suddenly, "I'm detecting unusual energy readings from the Zarathi mothership. They're adapting somehow." Lisa's triumph was short-lived. One of the larger Zarathi ships changed course, heading directly toward the Defiant on what appeared to be a collision course. "They're testing our phase technology," Lisa realized. "Chief Williams, will physical objects pass through us in this state?" Peter's face paled. "No, Captain. We're still physically present enough to be rammed." "Evasive maneuvers," Lisa ordered. "We have 5 minutes of phase technology left. Let's make them count." As the Defiant twisted away from the oncoming Zarathi vessel, Lisa knew the real battle had only just begun. The enemy was learning, adapting. The question was whether humanity's ingenuity could keep pace with the collective's evolution. For the first time in recorded history, the Zarathi advance had been checked. But holding them back and defeating them were two very different challenges. The UES Defiant twisted through space like a dancer, narrowly avoiding the Zarathi vessel that tried to ram it. Captain Lisa Hendricks gripped her chair as the ship's artificial gravity struggled to compensate for the sudden maneuver. "That was too close," John Kelly said, his eyes fixed on the tactical display where dozens of enemy ships moved in complex patterns. "They're learning our evasion algorithms. Each pass gets closer." Lisa nodded grimly. "How much phase time do we have left?" "Chief Williams?" Peter checked his console. 4 minutes and 20 seconds, Captain." The phase technology had given them an edge. But the Zarathi were adapting faster than anyone had anticipated. 3 of their ships had already been destroyed by the Defiant's weapons, but the rest now moved differently, testing the limits of the human vessel's capabilities. Across the battlefield, the UES Dauntless fought its own desperate battle. Without phase technology, Captain Grant's ship relied on conventional tactics, speed, maneuverability, and precision firing. The Dauntless had taken heavy damage but was still in the fight, drawing attention from a significant portion of the Zarathi fleet. "Captain, I'm detecting something strange," Olivia Martinez reported from the science station. "The Zarathi vessels are emitting some kind of quantum field. It's interfering with our sensors." Daniel Garcia's head snapped up from his intelligence console. "It's not just interference. They're probing our phase field, trying to understand how it works." Sudden realization hit Lisa. They're not just learning our tactics, they're learning our technology. This was what made the Zarathi so dangerous. Not just their numbers or their weaponry, but their ability to analyze and incorporate any technology they encountered. Each battle made them stronger. 3 minutes of phase time remaining, Peter warned. Lisa made a quick decision. "Lieutenant Kelly, prepare to drop phase for 30 seconds on my mark." John looked shocked. "Captain? Without phase protection, we'll be completely vulnerable." "Exactly," Lisa replied. "They're studying our phase field. Let's show them something else." She opened a channel to the Dauntless. "Captain Grant, we're about to execute a ruse. Be ready to concentrate fire on the lead Zarathi vessel when I give the signal." Eric's face on the screen showed understanding. "Ready when you are." Lisa took a deep breath. "Mark, drop phase now." The strange sensation of phase distortion vanished. The Defiant was fully in normal space again, and immediately vulnerable to the Zarathi weapons. "All power to conventional shields," Lisa ordered. "Helm, rotation pattern Delta, make us a hard target." The Defiant spun rapidly, its engines firing, in short, precise bursts that sent the ship tumbling in a controlled pattern. Enemy fire lanced toward them, most missing due to the unpredictable movement. Some hits connected, however. The ship shuddered violently as Zarathi energy weapons struck its shields. "Shields at 40% and falling," Olivia called out. "Lisa, counted silently. 20 seconds had passed. The Zarathi were adjusting their firing patterns, becoming more accurate with each shot. "Now," Lisa commanded. "Reactivate phase and target the lead vessel's central section. Captain Grant, fire on my target." The phase field snapped back into place just as several Zarathi energy beams were about to hit the Defiant. They passed, harmlessly through the ship instead. Both human vessels fired simultaneously, concentrating their weapons on a single point on the largest Zarathi ship. The combined firepower overwhelmed whatever defensive systems the enemy had in place. Explosions blossomed across the vessel's hull, and it began to list to one side. "Direct hit," John reported with satisfaction. "Their central command node is critically damaged." Something unexpected happened next. The other Zarathi ships paused momentarily as if confused. Their perfectly coordinated movements became erratic for several seconds. Daniel studied his readings intently. "Fascinating. They operate like a hive mind. When we damaged their command ship, it temporarily disrupted their communication network." Lisa seized the opportunity. "All weapons target their communication arrays. Look for external structures that could be transmitters or receivers." For the next minute, the Defiant fired relentlessly, targeting what appeared to be communication systems on several Zarathi ships. Each successful hit caused a ripple of confusion through the enemy fleet. 2 minutes of phase time left, Peter reminded them. The Dauntless hailed them again. Eric's face appeared on screen, now streaked with smoke. Behind him, damage control. Teams worked frantically to extinguish fires. "We've taken heavy damage," he reported. "Engine room hit, shields failing. But we're still in the fight." Before Lisa could respond, Olivia called out in alarm. "Captain, 3 Zarathi vessels are breaking off to attack the mining stations." Lisa cursed under her breath. In the heat of battle, she'd almost forgotten about the civilians they were protecting. "How many people are still on those stations?" "About 800, Daniel answered quickly. "The Dauntless can't pursue them," Eric said. "We're barely maintaining position as it is." Lisa faced an impossible choice: continue their coordinated attack on the main fleet, or split their forces to protect civilians. Neither option promised success. "Chief Williams," she asked, "what happens if we divert power from weapons to the phase drive? Can we extend our phase time?" Peter's fingers flew over his console, running calculations. "Theoretically, yes, but our offensive capabilities would be severely limited." Lisa nodded. "Do it. Lieutenant Kelly, plot an intercept course for those raiders. We're going after them." The Defiant broke away from the main battle, accelerating toward the mining stations with all available speed. Behind them, the Dauntless continued to fight, drawing the attention of most of the Zarathi fleet. As they approached the mining stations, Lisa could see the 3 Zarathi vessels already in position, preparing to fire on the defenseless structures. "We won't reach them in time," John said, his voice tight with frustration. Lisa leaned forward. "Divert all remaining power to the phase drive." "Captain?" Peter questioned. "Do it, Chief." "Now." Peter complied, and something strange happened. The Ki-R phase field around the Defiant expanded rapidly, stretching out in front of the ship like a wave. "What's happening?" Lisa demanded. "The field is becoming unstable," Peter explained, his eyes wide with surprise. "It's extending beyond the ship's hull." The expanding phase field washed over the Zarathi vessels attacking the mining stations. For a moment they seemed to flicker, becoming partially transparent as the field affected them. "They're being pulled partially out of phase," Olivia exclaimed. "But they don't have protection against the phase shift." On the view screen, Lisa watched as the Zarathi ships began to break apart, their hulls unable to maintain structural integrity while partially phased. Within seconds, all 3 vessels had disintegrated. "Phase technology critical," Peter shouted. "Drive overloading." Lisa didn't hesitate. "Shut it down. Return to normal space." The phase field collapsed, leaving the Defiant fully in normal space once again. But the mining stations were saved. The victory was short-lived. Without the protection of the phase technology, the Defiant was now as vulnerable as the Dauntless. And the main Zarathi fleet, having observed what happened to their raiding party, was turning their attention toward the human ship that had caused so much damage. Phase technology is offline, Peter reported grimly. The drive needs at least 30 minutes to cool down before we can use it again. Lisa looked at the tactical display, where dozens of enemy ships were now converging on their position. We don't have 30 minutes, she said quietly. The bridge of the UES Defiant fell silent as the crew watched the tactical display. Dozens of red dots representing Zarathi vessels moved toward them, forming a half circle that would soon become a complete enclosure. Without the phase technology, they were just one ship against an overwhelming force. Conventional shields at 30%, Olivia Martinez reported. Multiple hull breaches on decks 3 through 6. Medical reports 17 injured, 2 critical. Captain Lisa Hendricks nodded grimly. What's the status of the Dauntless? Still fighting, John Kelly answered, but they've taken heavy damage. Their engines are at minimal power. They can't maneuver effectively. Lisa studied the tactical situation. The mining stations were safe for now, but both human ships were in grave danger. The Zarathi had adapted to their tactics and were now moving in for the kill. Chief Williams, how long until the phase drive cools down enough for emergency use? Lisa asked. Peter checked his readings. 28 minutes at the current rate. But even then, we'll only get maybe 30 seconds of phase protection before it overheats again. Lisa tapped her fingers on the arm of her chair, thinking rapidly. Humanity had made its stand at Arcturus, but it seemed the stand would end in defeat after all. Unless... Intelligence Officer Garcia, you said the Zarathi operate like a hive mind, correct? She asked suddenly. Daniel looked up from his console. Yes, Captain. They appear to share information instantaneously across their fleet. When we damaged their command ship, it disrupted their coordination temporarily. And that was just from physical damage, Lisa mused. What if we could disrupt their communication network more directly? A spark of realization appeared in Daniel's eyes. The phase technology. When it expanded and affected those 3 ships, it didn't just damage them physically. It disrupted their quantum communication field. Lisa turned to Peter. Chief, you said the phase drive needs to cool down. But what if we're not trying to protect ourselves? What if we just want to generate a phase pulse, a wave that could wash over their fleet? Peter's expression changed from confusion to understanding. A phase pulse, it could work. But Captain, generating that kind of pulse would require channeling all power through the phase drive. And I mean all power, weapons, shields, life support, everything. For how long? Lisa asked. 30 seconds, maybe less. The ship shuddered as a Zarathi beam struck their weakening shields. Shields at 20%, Olivia called out. Lisa opened a channel to the Dauntless. Captain Grant, we have a plan, but we need to coordinate. Can you keep the Zarathi focused on you for another minute? Eric's face appeared on screen, illuminated by emergency lighting. We'll do what we can. What's your plan? We're going to try to disrupt their hive mind with a phase pulse, Lisa explained quickly. But we'll be completely vulnerable while we charge it. Eric nodded grimly. We'll draw their fire. Good luck, Captain Hendricks. The Dauntless suddenly accelerated, its engines glowing hot as it charged directly toward the center of the Zarathi formation. The enemy immediately responded, turning their attention and weapons toward the human ship. Now's our chance, Lisa said. Chief Williams, begin rerouting all power to the phase drive. Lieutenant Kelly, move us into position behind that debris field for minimal cover. The Defiant moved quietly while the Dauntless engaged in a spectacular battle, weapons firing in all directions as it weaved through the Zarathi formation. The enemy was completely focused on destroying the immediate threat. Power rerouting. In progress, Peter reported. Weapons offline. Shields offline. Life support switching to emergency backup. The bridge lights dimmed, and the air began to grow still as the ventilation systems powered down. How long can we survive without life support? Lisa asked. About 6 minutes before oxygen levels become critical, Olivia answered. Lisa nodded. That should be enough time. She opened the ship-wide communication system. All hands, this is the captain. Prepare for complete power shutdown in 30 seconds. The air will get thin, and it will get cold. But if this works, we'll have oxygen to breathe and a story to tell. She watched the tactical display as the Dauntless continued its valiant fight. The smaller human ship was now surrounded by Zarathi vessels, taking hit after hit but still firing back. Phase drive charge at 60%, Peter announced. 70, 80. The Defiant went completely dark as the final power reserves were channeled to the phase drive. Emergency chemical lights cast an eerie glow over the bridge. The crew's breath began to fog in the rapidly cooling air. Phase drive at maximum charge, Peter called out, his voice echoing in the silent bridge. Ready to initiate pulse on your command. Lisa took a deep breath of the thinning air. Do it. Peter pressed the activation key. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then, Lisa felt the now familiar sensation of reality shifting around them. But this time, it wasn't confined to the ship. Through the viewports, she could see a wave of distortion expanding outward from the Defiant, washing over debris, then reaching the first Zarathi ships. The effect was immediate and dramatic. As the phase wave passed through each enemy vessel, their lights flickered and died. Some began to drift aimlessly while others spun out of control. It's working, Daniel exclaimed. Their quantum field is collapsing. They can't communicate with each other. The phase pulse continued expanding, eventually washing over the entire Zarathi fleet. Ship after ship lost power or control. Some collided with each other, causing secondary explosions across the battlefield. The Dauntless, John called out. The pulse affected them too. Lisa strained to see through the viewport. The Dauntless was indeed drifting, its engines dark, but it appeared intact, and more importantly, the Zarathi were no longer firing on it. Emergency power only, Peter reported as the ship's systems slowly came back online. Life support restored, basic propulsion available. Get us to the Dauntless, Lisa ordered, and scan the Zarathi vessels. I want to know if they're disabled or just temporarily stunned. As power returned to the sensors, Daniel studied the readings carefully. The Zarathi ships are showing minimal power signatures. Their systems appear to be rebooting, but very slowly. Their coordination is completely disrupted. The communication console suddenly chimed. Incoming transmission, Olivia announced, with surprise. It's from Earth Command? Commander Alan Davis's face appeared on screen. Captain Hendricks? Captain Grant? Do you read me? Lisa felt a surge of relief. Commander Davis, your timing is impeccable. We picked up some very unusual energy readings from Arcturus, Alan said. And then every Zarathi ship we were tracking suddenly went dark. What happened out there? Lisa allowed herself a small smile. We said no, sir. 1 week later, Lisa stood in the observation lounge of the repaired Defiant, looking out at the Arcturus system. The mining stations were operational again, and reinforcements from Earth had arrived to secure the system. The door slid open and Commander Davis entered. The reports are in, he said without preamble. The Zarathi are in full retreat across 3 sectors. For the first time since they entered our galaxy, they're running away. Lisa nodded. They never encountered resistance like ours before. Their strength was in their perfect coordination, their hive mind. When we disrupted that, we showed them they could be beaten, Alan finished. The Galactic Council is calling it the Arcturus Miracle. They want to study the phase technology. Every species that ran from the Zarathi now wants to help fight them, Lisa continued, looking out at the stars. It wasn't a miracle, Commander. It was human stubbornness, human ingenuity, human courage. Alan smiled. That's exactly what I told the Council. 2 human ships stood against an armada and said no. And sometimes, that's all it takes to change the course of history. Outside, the viewport, ships from a dozen species now patrolled the system, united in purpose where once they had been divided by fear. The Zarathi had swept through systems unopposed for years, until a human warship said, no, and the galaxy had heard.